Chapter 9. The Wondrous Wnt Pathway, the Ultimate Fountain of Youth? By resetting the signals of our stem cells, small molecules can renew our body's natural balance and stop degenerative disease in its tracks. We're reminding the body how it was when it was healthy. Osman Kibar. On day 2 of the Vatican's Unite to Cure conference, in a modern hall where the Pope greets bishops from around the world, we heard from one medical science superstar after the next. There were world-leading experts on the plant food revolution, next-gen genetic testing, and the stem cell pharmacy of the future. Then a mild-mannered man with a professional air took his seat on the dais. Wearing wire-rimmed glasses, a loosely knotted blue tie, and a shy smile, he spoke so softly that you had to lean forward to hear him. It was just before lunch when people's attention tends to flag, and this speaker had some tough acts to follow. He didn't have a famous name or a big media profile. But for the next 22 minutes, Osman Kibar, the founder and executive chair of an extraordinary startup called BioSplice, commanded that room. We'll soon be diving into the details of Osman's groundbreaking company and the science it believes will change the face of medicine. But first, let me share with you the show part of Osman's show and tell. He began with before and after x-rays of animal and human knees where a single BioSplice injection grew fresh cartilage to heal bone-on-bone arthritis. You didn't have to squint to see the results. There was visible improvement. Then we saw before and after scans of an animal's colon, where angry purple masses of tumor vanished after treatment with a BioSplice pill. The next slides used graphs to plot the progress of 8 different human tumors implanted into animals. Over 3 short weeks in an untreated control group, the tumors grew like weeds. But in each and every case, Osman said, their therapy was able to reverse tumor growth and eliminate the tumors, both primary and metastatic. That's a huge deal, because it's the metastases, the secondary malignancies, that can pop up anywhere in the body that are most elusive and most dangerous. There was more. A BioSplice inhaler was healing lungs scarred by pulmonary fibrosis, which is generally considered untreatable. On deck was an Alzheimer's pill with stunning impact so far in reversing damage to brain tissue in animals. On the orthopedic front, the company was testing a lotion to repair torn tendons. Another lotion was showing strong promise with androgenic alopecia, which many of you know as male pattern baldness, the most common source of hair loss in both women and men. Osman was too modest to frame it this way, but the implications were clear. BioSplice may have found a way to repair nearly every tissue and organ in the body to make us functionally young again. The Vatican audience was no pushover, and at first you could cut their skepticism with a knife. I saw rows of crossed arms and rolled eyes. No one had heard anything like this before. But by the end of Osman's presentation, he definitely had people's attention. Many in the mostly middle-aged audience were leaning forward in eager interest, especially when he laid out a potential baldness cure. I was sitting with friends who happened to be 3 of the smartest science minds around. My co-author, Peter Diamandis, Dr. Sanjay Gupta, CNN's chief medical correspondent, and Dr. Mehmet Oz, the Emmy-winning TV host and professor of surgery at New York Presbyterian Hospital, Columbia. They were buzzing among themselves, midway between blown away and disbelieving. This sounds crazy. Could it be real? Just 1 month earlier, the SEC had sued the top executives of Theranos, a diagnostics company once valued at $9 billion, for fraud. It was a worldwide scandal and a cautionary tale. Max Gomez, the CBS medical correspondent and Osman's moderator, voiced the general suspicion. If something looks too good to be true, it probably is. If BioSplice had actually cracked the regeneration code, why wasn't there more data? And so, Osman explained. For the company's first 8 years of existence, when it went under the name of Samumed, he and his colleagues operated in stealth mode. To avoid tipping off the competition, they kept their data and progress to themselves. As a privately held company, they had that right. Around 2016, once Osmond's executive team decided that their patents were far enough out front, they began revealing more details of their animal and human studies. And unlike the bogus blood test machine hyped by Theranos, as Osmond points out, therapeutic trials run by BioSplice fall under strict FDA reporting requirements. By now, I think you know that I'm a curious person, to say the least. I had to find out more, so I visited Osmond at his company's Steel and Glass San Diego headquarters, where the parking lot is dotted with palm trees. I found out that BioSplice has documented advances against 8 all-too-common diseases: osteoarthritis, solid tumors, liquid tumors like leukemias, Alzheimer's, tendinitis, degenerative disc disease, chronic lung scarring, and male pattern baldness. The results looked miraculous, but BioSplice had simply found a way to leverage our body's natural powers to renew itself, our life force. BioSplice has now presented its findings at scores of scientific meetings and in dozens of peer-reviewed journals. If their trials prove out, and there's no guarantee that they will, the winning therapy against some of the toughest cancers won't be chemotherapy or radiation or surgery. Believe it or not, it will be a once-a-day pill with minimal side effects. What's really exciting is that this prospective cancer remedy is just one of several radical therapies in the BioSplice pipeline. Since 2008, Osmond and Cevdet Semikoglu, to whom Osmond passed the torch as CEO in 2021, and their band of Turkish-born prodigies, have been working around the clock, barely coming up for air. Groundbreaking medicine is a slog. When you're out to change the world, it's usually 2 steps forward and 1 step back. BioSplice is tackling diseases that traditional medicine considers incurable or even untreatable, from arthritis to Alzheimer's. When science moves into uncharted territory, as Osmond can tell you, there are bound to be wrong turns and temporary setbacks. But the fact remains that any one of these bold therapies could become a lifeline for millions. Together, they could rewrite our medical textbooks. They hold the power to change how we think about illness and, most of all, about health and healing. Recognizing the company's sterling safety record, federal regulators have given them a green light for 8 carefully administered clinical human studies. Under the FDA's compassionate use policy, a program for unapproved medicines when nothing else is known to work, thousands of subjects have been treated with what Osmond calls BioSplice's secret recipe. We'll share the ingredients with you shortly. While it's still early days for most of these trials, at least one set of Phase 3 results for their landmark effort to effectively cure osteoarthritis may be rolling out by the time you're hearing this. If the next round of data reads out as BioSplice hopes, and a single shot in the knee can offer long-term relief of chronic pain, an FDA-approved therapy could be on the market before the end of 2023. Imagine what it would feel like to regenerate your worn cartilage and walk or run without so much as a twinge. Imagine a flexible, powerful, brand-new you for a cost of less than $5,000 per knee. And then imagine how you'd feel with good-as-new shoulders or hips, the next joints on the company's hit list. My co-authors and I have encountered an abundance of amazing health span solutions in writing this book. And here's what we need to tell you. BioSplice's proprietary molecules are demonstrating the power of regenerative medicine more dramatically than virtually anything else we've seen on the near horizon. They are showing the potential to have an extraordinary impact on humanity. You don't have to take my word for it. Forbes magazine put Osmond on its cover and named him one of their 30 global game changers, alongside Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg, and Elon Musk. Some tremendously savvy people in the financial world are voting on BioSplice with their wallets. In April 2021, BioSplice announced $120 million in new equity financing, on top of the more than $500 million, $650 million, it raised under the banner of Samumed. These savvy investors believe that BioSplice is more than a very smart guy's vision. So do I, which is why I also invested in the company. In fact, the venture capitalist Finian Tan, an early backer of Baidu, China's Google, believes the impact of the company's patented breakthrough, could rival Alexander Fleming's discovery of antibiotics back in 1928. Does that sound a little much to you? Just slightly over the top? I might have thought so too, until I heard Osmond speak at the Vatican. Our small molecules can communicate with any progenitor stem cell in any tissue in the body and trigger them down any lineage, restoring the health of any particular tissue. Osmond Kebar at the Vatican's Unite to Cure conference. Sticking with the 40,000-foot version for the non-scientists among us, the gist of Osmond's delivery was this. From the day we're born until the time we die, our lives depend on the descendants of the embryonic stem cells that leave us at birth. They're called progenitor stem cells, descendants of stem cells that then further differentiate to create specialized cell types and maintain and repair every system in our body. One family of progenitor cells replenishes our blood and bone marrow. Another fixes damage to our central nervous system, a recent discovery that's given new hope to people with spinal cord injuries or Parkinson's or multiple sclerosis. A third, the epithelial family, keeps our skin supple and our hair follicles sprouting. A fourth, our mesenchymal stem cells, is in charge of muscle, bone, cartilage, ligaments, and tendons, like the rotator cuff I tore. These living cells are a core component of the life force within each and every one of us. How does BioSplice fit into this picture? As Osmond explained at the Vatican, his company had deciphered how to utilize and impact something called the Wnt signaling pathway, a sort of relay circuit made of genes and proteins. Our bodies have many biochemical pathways. Each one is a sequence of chemical actions and reactions within our cells. But Wnt is special. It signals our progenitor stem cells to make specific types of tissue, when, how much, and when to stop, as Osmond explained. It has a huge say in how our cells differentiate and also how they proliferate or multiply. So how important is Wnt? Let's just say it's the foundation for all animal life. It's the primary developmental pathway in the body, Osmond says. When we're young, up to age 20 or so, the Wnt pathway streams like a Zoom link with premium bandwidth and no hackers. Assuming normal good health, our progenitor stem cells give us what we need when and where we need it, no more and no less. But as we age, 21st century living takes its toll. Questionable lifestyle choices and environmental toxins and epigenetic scratches add up. Our Wnt signals get distorted. They drift out of range and are drowned by static. Communication breaks down within cells and also between them. We wind up with too much of some things and too little of others, and our health span takes a beating. But if we could retrieve the clear and timely cellular signals of our youth, or what David Sinclair calls our lost information, we might reincarnate our optimal selves, our 20-year-old selves. The big BioSplice breakthrough is to bring the Wnt pathway back to base. Their small molecule medicines target and penetrate particular stem cells and dial them up or down. Think of the dimmer switch that controls your table lamp. When they're turned up, those tired, depleted cells in our joints or lungs or scalp will erupt in a frenzy of rejuvenation. When they're turned down, overabundant bone cells, for one example, the main cause of osteoarthritis, retreat and leave room for more cartilage. When they're turned down, it also affects malignant tumor stem cells, and they stop multiplying uncontrollably. Order trumps chaos. Homeostasis is restored. Cellular creation and destruction return to their natural, healthy balance. Venture capital isn't betting blind on BioSplice. Osmond and his team have compiled a winning track record wherever they've applied themselves, from the financial world to bench science. In fact, Osmond is a mathematical genius, something that has helped him in the analysis phase of solving some of these biochemical challenges. He even won the European Math Championship as a high school junior. In fact, shortly before launching the company, Osmond entered his first poker tournament just for kicks. He won it easily. A year later, he finished second in the World Series of Poker in Las Vegas and took home a cool $420,000. He then entered one more tournament, won again, and quit. He didn't like the mental hangover effect, he said. What does he do for fun now instead? He reads textbooks and higher math with meditation on the side for his own personal balance. At this point, as BioSplice continues to build on its early successes, even the professional cynics are coming around. But there's one group who never doubted Osman in the first place. The people who know him best. I've known him since we were 11, and he's the smartest guy I know. If anybody's going to do something world-changing, he was my home run guy. Cevdet Samikoglu, Osman Kibar's successor as CEO of BioSplice. Osman Kibar was born and raised on Turkey's Aegean coast. At age 11, in a high-stakes national exam involving 1.5 million students, he placed in the top 100th of the top 1% his ticket into Robert College, an elite American-run secondary school in Istanbul. After his triumph at the European Math Championship, I pretty much had my pick of colleges, he told me. Smitten by California's Mediterranean climate, before the recent siege of wildfires, he chose Pomona College and the California Institute of Technology for a special dual degree program in mathematical economics and electrical engineering. Your basic gut courses, right? Then it was on to the University of California, San Diego for his PhD in biophotonics, a futuristic field that links light technologies and medicine. Even before finishing graduate school, Osman founded the diagnostics company Genoptix. 4 years after going public, it was bought by Novartis, the pharma giant, for $470 million. Excited by the prospect of seeding more biotech innovations, Osman joined Pequot Capital, a Wall Street private equity firm. 1 month later, 9/11 tanked the stock market and sent investors running for cover. The high-risk, high-reward deals that Osman lived for were abandoned. One morning I woke up, I was an investment banker, he told me. It had nothing to do with technology anymore. He returned to San Diego, where at least the sun was warm. In a development that would change the trajectory of Osman's career, and maybe some of 21st century medicine along with it, the pharmaceutical giant Pfizer proposed an audacious joint venture, a Hail Mary incubator. They'd been working on this molecular signaling pathway that could change everything, the Pfizer scientists said, but there was one small problem. Since 1982, when the Wnt pathway was first discovered, nobody could figure out how to manipulate it safely and effectively. Scientists knew that lots of illnesses were the result of a dysregulated Wnt signaling. No argument there. What they couldn't do, Osman says, is come up with a way to bring it back into healthy operation. Prior efforts failed to stay in their lane. They compromised healthy tissue. Modulating is easy, as Osman points out, or easy for him at least. But to do it safely, that's the challenge. It goes back to a principle attributed to the Greek physician Hippocrates. First, do no harm. BioSplice was founded in 2008 as a Pfizer incubator called Samumed before Osman separated and struck out on his own. Osman seeded his next success in an unlikely setting, a pickup basketball game with some of his old Robert School brainiac classmates, the best and the brightest. Eventually, he persuaded 3 of them to join his startup. First on board as CFO was Cevdet Samikoglu, a Harvard MBA who'd made his mark at Goldman Sachs, Wall Street's Alpha Dog investment bank, and then the wildly successful Grey Wolf Capital hedge fund. Then came Chief Legal Officer Arman Oruch, who'd co-founded the Washington, D.C. office of Simpson, Thacher & Bartlett, one of the nation's most prestigious law firms. When Yusuf Yazıcı, an internationally renowned rheumatologist at NYU, got wind of what was going on, he texted Cevdet, "You have to get me in on this. Osman has found the God pill." He joined as Chief Medical Officer. All 3 of these old friends took steep pay cuts with no signing bonuses. Why? Because they trusted Osman and believed he was on the verge of doing something big. The Turkish dream team was complete, and their dream would soon come to fruition. BioSplice broke through where others had failed by doing 2 things better than anyone else. First, they identified the biological targets, the signaling proteins that could corral a Wnt pathway gone haywire. Then they chemically engineered a lineup of unique molecules to trigger their targets to jump into action. Sometimes, with hair loss or a damaged spinal cord, the goal was to stimulate stem cells that were asleep at the switch. But where there was too much regeneration, as in cancer or Alzheimer's, the aim was to tell the tissue, "Chill out, settle down, you have to do less," Osmond said. That's why we call it restorative medicine. When you're tweaking an ancient evolutionary mechanism, it pays to beware of unintended consequences. The last thing you'd want to do is overstimulate someone's liver cells into a tumor or add fibrosis in a lung. The sweet spot? Healing diseased tissue while leaving normal cells alone. The beauty of the Wnt pathway is that it affects only undeveloped cells. Progenitor stem cells, again, these are cells that give us what we need, when we need it, and where we need it, are tuned 24/7 to the Wnt frequency. But fully differentiated adult cells don't come equipped with a receiver, and so they never get the signal. This explains how BioSplice's proprietary molecules have rung up such an outstanding safety profile to date. It's why they can launch their D-Day assault on disease without the collateral havoc of many traditional drugs. They can brighten or dim that lamp without changing the TV's volume or the heat from the radiator. The cherry on top is that the molecules don't stick around for very long. Many have a half-life measured in days or even hours. Once our Wnt levels snap back into equilibrium, Osmond said, the molecules pass the baton to the progenitor stem cells we were born with. They know what to do. They've been doing it all our lives. They get jump-started, and it's a chain reaction. Although these medicines are incredibly complex to produce, they have a fundamentally simple job: to remind our body to do what comes naturally. All of the in-progress BioSplice studies have one critical thing, one astonishing thing, in common. At the doses the company plans to commercialize, none of its small molecule therapies have caused any significant harmful side effects. They tweak their Wnt targets and call it a day. Whenever they run into healthy tissue, Osmond told me, they just float around harmlessly and then get extracted over time. Like the Lone Ranger, they take care of the bad guys and then hot-footed out of town. It doesn't matter who cures osteoarthritis. Whoever cures it has the potential to be the largest company in the world. Finian Tan, venture capitalist. A few years back, BioSplice published a study of its treatment for osteoarthritis, a painful, debilitating condition that plagues 30 million people in the United States alone. Of 61 patients who took a solitary injection into their knee, all 61 showed visible improvement, less pain, more mobility, 24 weeks later. Even more remarkable, they added on average nearly 2 millimeters of fresh cartilage. That's what impressed the Food and Drug Administration the most, the X-ray data, Osmond told me. We were actually able to demonstrate that causative link between the pain and function and the disease modification. Of course, we expected it, but it's such a nice thing to be able to actually show it to the FDA. By signaling a protein called beta-catenin, the BioSplice molecule called loracivivint also calmed inflammation and stopped the breakdown of existing cartilage. We wait for 6 to 12 months while the mesenchymal stem cells are recruited, Osmond said. They multiply, they differentiate, and we are able to regenerate new cartilage. The health of the whole joint is restored back to normal. Loracivivint is an equal opportunity medicine. The octogenarians in the study improved as much as anyone else. No matter how old the patient is, once the stem cells are triggered, they regenerate, Osmond said. Once the Wnt pathway's signals are back in tune, there is no difference between the regenerative capability of a 40-year-old, 60-year-old, or an 80-year-old. Do you have chronic joint pain? Does someone you care about suffer with it? If so, you know just how much is riding on this startup's success. There are 0 drugs on the market today, not one, that can halt osteoarthritis, let alone reverse it. Patients are traditionally left with 2 less than wonderful options. They can medicate their symptoms with painkillers or anti-inflammatories, which do nothing to slow the progress of the disease and come with serious downsides of their own, from liver damage to addiction. Or they can endure the pain and expense and long months of recovery from a surgical knee or other joint replacement. Compared to these approaches, the BioSplice alternative, one injection, sounds awfully appealing. Since the medicine's administration is strictly local, the company says, side effects are nil. The molecule binds to the surface of the bone, rallies the mesenchymal stem cells in the neighborhood, and spurs them to be fruitful and multiply. Over the next 6 months, the medicine gets excreted through the lymphatic system. It never enters the bloodstream. What's more, the new Wnt-inspired cartilage rivals that of a teenager, Osmond says, fresh out of the stem cell factory. The progenitor cells need only a wake-up call to remember what they used to do before we were old enough to vote. You can run, jump, whatever activity you want. After the benefits wear off and the cartilage wears down again, 3 years or so down the road, you can return for another shot. If this sounds like some fantasy graphic novel, I'm with you. But I've witnessed firsthand the impact on these patients, and it's blown my mind. One afternoon I was visiting with Osmond and asking about new applications of their unique therapies. He took me to his computer and said, "Take a look at this." He brought up a video of adult rats whose spines had been destroyed. None of the animals could move their legs or arms. The BioSplice researchers injected loricivivant into the spines of half of the rats. 6 months later, the untreated control group was still wasting away, while the injected rats regenerated a whole new spinal cord that was younger and stronger on a cellular level, Osmond said, than what they had in the first place. These restored rats were racing through a maze. I literally couldn't believe my eyes. The results were so strong that BioSplice launched a clinical trial for degenerative disc disease. While animal trials must be taken with a grain of salt, in this case they certainly appear to be a justified cause for optimism. Why? Because many animal studies don't transfer to humans. However, the Wnt pathway is extremely well conserved, as scientists say. It stayed intact and unchanged through hundreds of millions of years of evolution. Its signaling mechanism is basically identical in fruit flies and mice and dogs and monkeys and humans. If a BioSplice therapy works in a rodent, as Osmond told us, we believe with strong certainty that the same molecule will work in people. On a related point, there's another BioSplice molecule that dials up the Wnt pathway to heal damaged Achilles tendons, injured rotator cuffs, or severe tennis elbows. Delivered in a rub-on lotion, this one is also in human clinical trials. Once it sailed through a Phase 1 safety test, Osmond couldn't resist becoming his own guinea pig. He'd wrecked his knee so badly playing soccer, it bent opposite the way the good Lord intended, that for 6 months he had to sit with his leg out straight. 4 days after applying the lotion, the pain was gone, he told me. Less than a week after that, he was back on the playing field. I caution you that all of these stories are anecdotal. What really matters is what the final FDA Phase 2 and Phase 3 trials show us. But clearly, BioSplice is on a pathway of discovery that could transform the quality of our lives. We're not just targeting signs and symptoms. We're actually allowing the patient to not be a patient anymore. Osmond Kebar. Osmond and his team estimate that an overactive Wnt signaling pathway, the result of a genetic mutation, is responsible for up to 40% of human cancers overall. The percentages skew higher for more aggressive, faster-growing tumors. 93% of colorectal cancers, 90% of liver cancers, 2 of 3 pancreatic cancers, 50% of breast cancers. BioSplice therapies, now in early-stage Phase 1 trials, shrink these types of tumors by blocking cancer cells from proliferating. Tumor cells that cannot multiply commit suicide after a matter of 3 or 4 days, Osmond explains. In 3 weeks, it's an exponential decline. Unlike osteoarthritis, cancer is a systemic problem. Metastases are unpredictable and extremely challenging. In aggressive brain tumors, for example, surgeries are often out of the question. Why? because, as scientists explain, conventional chemotherapies are pretty much useless since they're blocked by the blood-brain barrier, a border wall of specialized cells designed to contain infections. BioSplice has figured out a way to penetrate this barricade and stay biologically active in the brain. As proof, the Wnt-modulating molecule shows up in the patient's cerebrospinal fluid. The bottom line, the BioSplice therapy may have the potential to treat conditions now considered death sentences. When I visited Osmond more recently, he could barely contain his excitement, in his calm and low-key way, of course, over a recent discovery. It began with a small group of protein catalysts called kinases that govern nearly every major biological process. When the Wnt pathway is muddled, the body's stem cells are like factories with faulty switches. They generate useless kinases or even harmful ones. After years of research on a few critical kinase families, BioSplice has gained an even deeper understanding of regenerative science, why and how their medicines can manipulate the Wnt pathway. The upstream factor is something called the alternative splicing mechanism. It's how stem cells transcribe their DNA into messenger RNA, or mRNA, which in turn determines which proteins get manufactured and what the cells become. It also explains the company's new name. Most DNA to mRNA transcriptions are hardwired, but a significant minority are subject to mutations, the source of rogue proteins and a glitchy Wnt signaling pathway. As CEO Cevdet Samakoglu explained to us, you get aberrant mRNA, or too much of an mRNA you don't need, or too little of an mRNA you do need. The BioSplice molecules can't stop mutations from happening, but they can silence the rogue proteins before they do their damage. While other biopharmaceutical companies have also targeted the alternative splicing mechanism, the BioSplice approach has much broader applicability, Cevdet added. The company's compounds are highly selective in homing in on a particular branch of a kinase family tree, but once you zoom into that branch, they are hitting everything. The rifle becomes a shotgun. On the one hand, the BioSplice platform has extraordinary promise to combat complex diseases caused by multiple mutations, like cancer, where more than one switch may need fixing. On the other hand, the molecule's selectivity figures to limit adverse side effects, like the gastrointestinal issues that come with standard cancer treatments. The goal of the next generation of BioSplice therapies is to attack different tumors with laser precision. The lower-hanging fruit are 6 of the more common malignancies: cancers of the prostate, breast, lung, ovaries, uterus, and colon. Pancreatic cancer, an even more intricate problem, will be attacked down the road. The company's custom molecules will give the relevant stem cells a nudge in the right direction, Osmond says. Once the correct composition of proteins is generated, the cell is healthy again. As you can see, BioSplice is a long way from being satisfied. They have in their sights almost every leading cause of death and disability. They aim to restore damaged cardiac muscle post-heart attack by delivering a Wnt-stimulating molecule through a special stent. Cardiac progenitor cells will bathe in the elixir and regenerate the injured tissue. What's more, they believe that a pill-delivered molecule can revive brain neurons ravaged by Alzheimer's. Looking farther to the future, Osmond and Cevdet are confident that a way will be found to awaken dormant stem cells to impact or cure Parkinson's and ALS, and perhaps even macular degeneration. Other targets would be traumatic brain injuries and hearing loss, and dozens of orphan diseases that afflict hundreds of thousands of people but have yet to find a therapeutic market. They have an internal library of more than 50,000 small molecules that can modulate the Wnt pathway. Used in different combinations, these medicines could potentially treat an unlimited number of conditions. In other words, the company's trials to date have barely scratched the surface. Frayed joints, dimmed retinas, raging tumors, immune systems gone bonkers, all are fair game for this revolutionary approach. We have not encountered any tissue that is not renewable, Osmond says. How exciting is that? When I hear about these latest breakthroughs, the transformations that lie in the not-too-distant future, I can only wonder, how can the BioSplice team get to sleep at night? And before I forget, let me bring you up to date on the company's work on androgenic alopecia. Ongoing studies in Turkey have established that a BioSplice lotion-based molecule increases hair follicle counts, and with none of the side effects, including sexual dysfunction, that some men experience with the widely prescribed finasteride, Propecia. In the pictures they shared with me, patients had noticeably fewer bald spots. Though the therapy may take a while to cross the regulatory divide between Europe and the U.S., it's just a matter of time. And how about this for a bonus? The same progenitor dermal stem cells that grow hair also go to the rescue of aging skin. We call our platform a fountain of youth, but piece by piece. Osman Kibar. BioSplice has a large vision, but it comes in two parts. For now, the company is going after one disease at a time, Osman says, using their Wnt toolbox to restore the health of patients piecemeal and thereby increase their quality of life and health span. The next step is even more ambitious, to turn back our biological clock, to make our aging bodies limber, supple, and free of pain. Osman isn't content with the concept of anti-aging. BioSplice is all about de-aging, he says. We define health not just as lack of disease, but what our optimal health was when we were younger. He sees the Wnt pathway as a basic tool, though not the only one, to not just stop or slow the aging process, but actually to reverse it. We believe we are going to make us younger. This is where the enormity of BioSplice's potential grows almost beyond imagining. Once loracivivint receives the FDA's blessing as a prescription osteoarthritis drug, as I said, they're in Phase 3 trials now and are hoping for an approval if all goes well, physicians will be able to legally and ethically prescribe it off-label for any use they see fit. The population that can benefit from more cartilage is tenfold the population that has osteoarthritis, Osman noted. At the age of 40, we start losing cartilage, whether we have osteoarthritis or not. Same thing with tendons. I cannot jump like I used to when I was 20. He envisions a day when BioSplice will be marketing cartilage regenerators and tendon repairers for healthy middle-aged people. Just put a few drops on each joint, he says, and we'll be like new. Remember, there's no guarantee that their next approach will succeed, but the most advanced approach is the Phase 3 trials, and that should be completed around the time that this book becomes available. If they do succeed, you'll have the opportunity to have a single injection that will regrow your cartilage in as little as 12 months, literally like new. If for some reason this formulation doesn't pass, here's one thing you can be certain of. Osman and the BioSplice team will not rest until they find the exact formulation that creates the impact on the Wnt pathway to create regeneration, revitalization, and repair. Like Peter Diamandis, Osman believes that our species has the capacity to live well beyond the historical limit of 120 years. As he told me that day in San Diego, if you wear out your car's tires, you replace them. In theory, you could replace every part of the car indefinitely. After a while, there is nothing of the original, but it's still your car. By rebalancing the Wnt pathway, BioSplice plans to do the same for our bodies, and not 100 years from now in some far-off future, but sooner than you may think. Over time, there might be relatively little left of your original tissues, but it would still be you. You, rejuvenated to your 20-year-old self. You, restored. Again, there's no guarantee of success in their endeavors, but as you can see from all of the heroes mentioned in this section, their level of absolute resolve and commitment to find answers are already changing our understanding of the human body's healing capacity and providing alternative solutions to some of our largest health challenges. So, let's recap. You've learned about the miracle of organ regeneration and creation, the power of gene therapy and CRISPR to actually cure disease at the source, and how incisionless brain surgery using ultrasound is transforming Parkinson's and tremor patients, crossing the blood-brain barrier to help treat cancer, and even showing promise in combating addiction. You've also learned about the mighty CAR T-cell, and now the power of the wondrous Wnt pathway. So, where do we go now? Let's talk about the very specific things you can do right now to immediately transform the quality of your life, even if you don't have any significant challenges. As we turn to Section 3, we'll introduce you to Chapter 10, Your Ultimate Vitality Pharmacy, the power of hormones, peptides, and some of the most impactful pharmaceutical-grade nutraceuticals that scientists are using to create massive changes in health and performance. Chapter 11, How to Live Pain-Free and the most powerful tools available without drugs to free you from the ravages of physical pain. Chapter 12, The Power of Simple Lifestyle Changes in a Longevity Diet, tools that cost you nothing and can help you prevent disease and restore your body to its highest levels. Chapter 13, The Power of Sleep, which sounds so basic and was something I didn't truly understand until recently. Learn how optimizing this third pillar of health can dramatically change your life. Chapter 14, A Quick Guide to Transform Your Strength and Performance and Increase Muscle Mass, one of the most important factors when it comes to aging and warding off many diseases, including cancer. Chapter 15 will also show you how to enhance your visible vitality and reveal the greatest breakthroughs in beauty that science is offering. Chapter 16, and then, finally, we have a special chapter on women's health, so that we can dispel myths and provide empowering solutions for women to live full, healthy, and vibrant lives. So, let's move forward to Section 3 and discover the latest breakthroughs and technologies that are available now and how they can improve your life.